So we are recording in progress. So I'll just open the Bhagavatam. So we have been reading very, very special chapter, really wonderful chapter about how Maharaj Parikshit, he encounters this age of Kali Yuga. So this age that we are, oh gosh, this age that we are in right now, if we haven't noticed it, it's a very difficult age. I was just talking to our son yesterday, Nimai, and he was saying that how, and he probably speaking for this generation, in fact, that so much of disillusionment with politics and with just the state and how toxic everything, if you just turn on CNN or if you turn any news channel of even any country, all we hear about is just moral degradation and a loss of hope. And so why is this happening? And why are things becoming so confusing to make sense of? And this is the reason for that is because right after Krishna disappears, and we heard about Krishna's disappearance, and then we heard about how the Pandavas left and all these great personalities left. Then Kali Yuga found a way in, and Kali Yuga appeared. I mean, this is the age of Kali Yuga. So this is why we are seeing all these discrepancies in society. So I don't know if you remember which verse we left on. Yeah, I think we did this verse. Anybody remember?
Fifth verse.
Fifth verse, right? Yeah, that's what I remember. Thank you. So I'm going to try and recite, and then we will read the translations. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhakti Nashtaki Shaunaka Vacha Kashya Hetor Nija Graha Kalim Digvijay Nripaha Nrideva Chihna Drik Shudra Kovasho Gamya Padhathanat Tam Kathayatam Mahabhaga Yadi Krishna Kathashrayam. So here, Shaunaka Rishi inquired, why did Maharaj Parikshit simply punish him, since he was the lowest of the Shudras, having dressed as a king and having struck a cow on the leg? Please describe all these incidents if they relate to the topics of Lord Krishna. So again, we are interested in topics of Krishna. We're interested in politics. So in one sense, this is about a king trying to create justice in his kingdom. And why would a spiritualist at one level be interested in any of this stuff? But the reason is because this is not an ordinary king. He was a king, but actually a sage. He was a great devotee. And so all his activities, whether it was in the realm of running a kingdom or it's in the realm of cleaning the house, like Mother Yashoda, she's a householder and a mother, and she's taking care of the house, or whether it is a great warrior like Arjuna, anyone engaged in any field of activity, as if they're a great devotee and if their activities are for the glorification of Krishna, then as great sages like Shaunaka Rishi and all the others, they're interested. They're interested to know what did they do and why did he do this. So, and at the same time, we can also see in that age how a person who was not qualified, but he was posing like a king, was such an offender. And again, it was not based on just caste consciousness but it was based on their qualities, on their state of consciousness. And that's another thing that we keep coming back to again and again. In fact, that's where we always circle back to, that what determines our elevated status is not our position. It's not even our accomplishments or our knowledge, but it's really dependent on our qualities. And we see that a person may be dressed up like a king, but if his behavior is not like of a saintly king, then he's not a king, then he's a Shudra. So whoever we are, whatever we are, is actually gauged by how we are, both in the public domain as well as in the private domain. And I always love to repeat this, that a person's greatness is determined by how much they can handle or respond to provocative situations. So, we'll continue. Text 6. Athavashya padam bhoja makaranda liham satam kim anyera sad alapir ayusho yad asad vyavaha. The devotees of the Lord are accustomed to licking up the honey available from the lotus feet of the Lord. What is the use of topics which simply waste one's valuable life? So again, alape is topics. Asat means illusory. So, there are so many topics. And, especially in this current age, we are surrounded by information. I mean, another name for this age of Kali is actually the age of information, right? The age of technology, the age of information. There's so much information. And yet, if that information does not um, allow us to taste this honey, which is available at the lotus feet of Krishna, then what is the use? What is the use of our learning? What is the use of our work? What is the use of being able to, like Prabhupada says, we can be an expert family man, or we can be an expert administrator, or a great manager, or a great artist, or a great whatever it is that we may think we are great at. But if it does not translate into a taste for chanting, if it does not translate into a taste or a desire to experience that taste of Krishna's lotus feet, then it is just shrama eva hi kevalam, which means that it is just useless labor. And this is how we can actually determine, even in our own life, that whatever activities that we may be engaged in, even if in our mind we are thinking, I'm performing dharma, and I'm such a person of great character because I always live a life of dharma. But if with that life of dharma, so-called dharma, if we have not actually attained this taste, this attraction for Krishna, then the Srimad Bhagavatam actually rejects that as just being useless labor. And the reason for that is because that dharma that we are engaging in has a beginning and it has a very sorry end, ultimately. And it does not create, other than creating another string of dharma. So this material dharma, all it gives us is another round of that same material dharma. So just like we see that in Sisyphus's example, right? He takes a stone up, comes down again takes it up, again comes down. So that's all. It's just a whole big cycle. And so this dharma, if it does not allow us to, transcend material dharma, then it is considered to be just shrama eva hi kevalam. I really love this, that Prabhupada saying our duration of life is not very long and there is no certainty of when we shall be ordered to leave everything for the next stage. Therefore, it is our duty to see that not a moment of our life is wasted in topics which are not related with Lord Krishna. Any topic, however pleasant, is not worth hearing if it is devoid of its relation to Krishna. So we don't know how long, we may say, well, I am right now a great king, so my dharma is that of a king. I don't know how long I'm going to be a king. I might say I'm a wife, or I'm a mother, or I'm a software engineer, whatever it is that we may think is our dharma at a current point, that dharma is very transient. And so we have to always keep our attention onto our supreme dharma, which is really the dharma that we can, that will give us the complete satisfaction that we're looking for. Shudra yusham drinam anga martyanam ritamechhatam iho pahuto bhagavan mrityu samitra karmani. O Sutta Goswami, there are those amongst men who desire freedom from death and get eternal life. They escape the slaughtering process by controlling the controller of death, Yamaraj. I love this Prabhupada's purport here. Let's read this. It's so nice. That the Yamaraj is the god of, or the lord of death. He's the controller of death. So Prabhupada here is saying, the first he's presenting this sort of like irony. He's saying that the scientists, they put forward this theory of stopping death by advancement of scientific knowledge, but they themselves become a victim of death when he's called by Yamaraj, right? So they themselves, like they talk about, like, there is a whole, I think at Harvard, our son was telling us, there's a longevity project that's going on and they're trying to see how they can live forever. Well, that was the exact same desire that we will encounter in the Srimad Bhagavatam by so many great demons who say, well, somehow, in fact, Hiranyakashipu, that he's going to perform severe austerities just for that one reason, because he wants to be immortal. So Prabhupada saying, but they're trying to do that, but they themselves become a victim of that death. this morning I was also listening to a lecture that, somebody might say, well, I have no belief or I don't believe in God. And yet, Krishna says that I come as death to take them away. So we have a choice of either meeting Krishna in a form of his loving embrace, or we can meet Krishna in the form of this all-devouring time as death. What to speak of stopping death? No one can enhance the short period of life even by a fraction of a moment. The only hope of suspending, and this is where Prabhupada is saying, so what's our hope then? The only hope of suspending the cruel slaughtering process of Yamaraj is to call him to hear and chant the holy name of the Lord. So how wonderful that, we are coming together every day here to chant and glorify Krishna through the chanting of recitation of Bhagavatam. So we can invite Yamaraj, come and please come and sit with us. Generally, people are very afraid of Yamaraj. Yamaraj is a great devotee of the Lord, and he likes to be invited to kirtans and sacrifices by the pure devotees who are constantly engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. So this is so amazing. There's a very nice story of this man. What was the name of that story? It's by Leo Tolstoy, about this man who found out that actually death was going to come, and so he gets very afraid. And then he knew I think the person told him that he was going to meet his death. Oh, no. I think he found out that he was about to die. So then he leaves that place. He says, all right, if death comes up, no, they're not going to find me because I'll just leave this place and I'll go elsewhere. And so he goes off to some other place, and then he's wandering there, and then he sees death there. And I'm really totally slaughtering this story. But the point being that, death personified says, well, I had an appointment with him in this place. So finally, this man actually lands up in the same place where he was meant to die, and then, and death comes and gets him. And so we say, we have a phrase, as sure as death, which means that, everything, might be, a matter of chance, but one thing we can be absolutely sure of is death. And it's something we cannot avoid. Na kashchin mriyate tavad yavad ashta ihantatah etad artham hi bhagavan ahuta paramarshvi aho nriloke piyata hari leelamritam vachaha. As long as Yamaraj, who causes everyone's death, is present here, no one shall meet with death. Isn't that amazing? The great sages have invited the controller of death, Yamaraj, who is the representative of the Lord. Living beings who are under his grip should take advantage by hearing the deathless nectar in the form of this narration of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. So this is amazing. But generally, when Yamaraj comes, everyone is very afraid. But here, they have invited Yamaraj, that you please come, and as long as he is there, as long as he's listening to this Bhagavatam, he's not going to, no one shall meet with death. And what does that mean? What does that really mean? That means that as long as we are engaged in this constant hearing and chanting of Krishna's names, qualities, pastimes, and trying to serve him, to that extent, this temporal material body is just an external covering. And, it really doesn't matter whether we are in this body or another body. It doesn't mean that a devotee doesn't die. It just means that for a devotee, after this lifetime, there is no break. Whether a person is in the material world after they leave this body or they go back to the spiritual world, there is actually no difference, and they will just continue to serve Krishna both in this body and the next body. And so in that way, there is no death. Death means forgetfulness, but for a devotee, there is no forgetfulness, and so there is no death. Mandasya manda pratyasya vayo mandasya saschavai nidraya hriyate naktam divacha vyartha karmabhi. Lazy human beings with paltry intelligence and a short duration of life pass the night sleeping and the day performing activities that are for naught. So Prabhupada's talking here about how the less intelligent are lazy, and they just use their life for, at night they use it for sleeping, and daytime for nothing. Why nothing? In one sense, one time Prabhupada was asked this question, that what did he think about the skyscrapers in New York? And Prabhupada said, simply stacking stones. So, somebody could say, this is the gift. This is what we have to show for. Are these cities with such amazing technology and tall skyscraper buildings and roads that are just on which the cars can zip by at 60-70 miles an hour, and we're living a dream life here thanks to modern development and technology. And yet a sadhu or a sage simply comes and he says, for naught. He just says, Shrama evahi kevalam, it's useless labor. So a person who's reading this might feel a little not so happy to hear that. But in order to understand that, one has to see this from a different reality, from a different realm, where from the realm of eternal time, this is just a tiny blip. And whatever we accumulate in this, even in one lifetime, it can all be lost. And we see that in the lives of such great people. They have everything, and yet, sometimes some great tragedy might strike them and they may lose everything. Even if they don't lose their money, they lose their peace of mind. They may lose their loved ones. So it's that little, it's like sometimes you see these bubbles on water, right? You just see this bubble, and before you can even catch it, the bubble disappears. So in the same way, our lives, what to speak of the accumulations within that life, it's just that like this tiny bubble. And that's why the scriptures, they come in and they say, it's just for nothing. Those bubbles, they just pop up, and just to give a perspective, all of these bubbles, countless bubbles, unlimited countless bubbles, they are simply emanating from the pores of Mahavishnu. And it's just an inhalation and exhalation. So think about it. It's just like, when he exhales, all these universes come out. When he inhales, they come back inside his body. And within that, like countless ages that we cannot even count, that even the greatest scientists cannot count, they're coming in existence and disappearing. So what to speak of our lifetime of 60, 70 years? It's nothing. It's nothing. It's so tiny. And that's why the scriptures are saying that all this work is for nothing. See, Prabhupada saying there are so many things manufactured by the human being. There are so many things manufactured by human energy, but they're all meant for sense enjoyment and not for getting out of material bondage. That is the program of materialistic civilized life for the less intelligent. Therefore, they're designated herein as lazy, unfortunate, and short-lived. Text 10. Sutta vacha yada parikshit kuru jangale avasat kalim pravishtam nija chakravartite nishamya vartam anati priyam tata sharasanam samyugal sondir adadev. Sutta Goswami said, while Maharaj Parikshit was residing in the capital of the Kuru Empire, the symptoms of the age of Kali began to infiltrate within the jurisdiction of the state. When he learned about this, he did not think the matter very palatable. This did, however, give him a chance to fight. He took up his bow and arrows and prepared himself for military activities. So now he got the news, right? Prabhupada saying that everything was perfect. Everything was going on well. Everyone in that, kingdom, when it is ruled by a king as great as Maharaj Parikshit, everyone was following their dharma properly. And when people follow that dharma nicely, then things are peaceful. But when he found out that the age of Kali had already infiltrated and that things are not going to be good, so he immediately took that as a great responsibility. 1 second. Yeah, it's 10:30. So he took it upon himself that I just want to read this last paragraph, because Prabhupada's actually now comparing what Maharaj Parikshit did to our responsibility as well. He's saying, similarly, in the age of Kali, the symptoms as above mentioned are sure to infiltrate into social life, but it is the duty of the state to save the citizens from the association of the agents of age of Kali. Maharaj Parikshit wanted to punish the miscreants indulging in the symptoms of Kali and thus save the innocent citizens who were pure in habit by culture of religion. It is the duty of the king to give such protection, and Maharaj Parikshit was perfectly right when he prepared himself to fight. So it's still there. Kali hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, it's only increasing in its intensity. And so, it behooves us to take up this great responsibility and dedicate our life to this great responsibility of making, just educating people, right? Telling people about this great danger that's there and helping them overcome it. Just like when you have rain, then you always want to make sure that your loved ones have an umbrella. You can't change the rainy season. You can't change when it's about to snow, but you can definitely have a jacket and make sure that one is not. So in the same way, we cannot change the fact that we're living in this age of Kali Yuga. But if we provide people the tools and the necessary knowledge to deal with this age of Kali, then they can go through this age of Kali, in fact, as if we're living in the golden age. So we'll stop here and take reflections and comments and questions.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I was just thinking why there are 4 Kali Yugas, why there are 4 seasons, why there is day and night. I mean, is it the same thing in a spiritual world also? Like there are also different like dualities, or I don't think so. So it's restricted to only the material world. All this different yogas or positivity and negativity, all this thing, is it only restricted in this material world only, or spiritual world also has duality? I don't think so, but I need your guidance.
Yeah, microphone. Why is it using Scarlet? Why is it not picking up Yeti?
I don't know.
No, that's why. Because the Scarlet is somewhere else. That's why it's not picking up the sound properly.
Okay, so, but I think they can hear us. Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, there is no Sati Yuga and there is no Kali Yuga. The Yuga cycle is only limited to the material world. But in the there's no sound.
It's very low right now.
There's no sound?
It's very low.
Can't hear
We
you
can't
either.
hear you either.
It's just very, very low, Mataji.
Very,
Very
very
low.
low.
Yeti, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Is it better now?
Yes, Hare Krishna, yes.
Okay. So, yeah, the day and night thing is there in the spiritual world because meeting and separation. So we have to understand what duality means in the material world. In duality, in the material world is created by the action of the 3 modes of nature. And that duality is binding. So like hatred and love and they, whatever duality we see in this material world is binding. It binds the positive and negative, both the forces, they bind the living entity to more and more this material world. But whatever so-called duality we see in the spiritual world, like there is day and night, there is passing of time, there is meeting and separation. Sometimes there are other things also, but all those things are meant to bring everybody closer to Krishna. And it increases the enhancement of enjoyment for Krishna and his devotees in the spiritual world. Because if there was no day and night, for example, it was just continuously day, then when would Krishna get the time to sneak out from the house in the night and go and meet the gopis and have that that relationship with Radharani? So the night is there to create that another mood of enjoyment for Krishna. So everything there is to increase Krishna's enjoyment. Where in this material world, everything is there to bind us more and more to this material world.
Everything is a rope here,
Yeah, everything is a rope.
whether it's night or it's,
So everything is made from 3 gunas, and 3 gunas means binding because they are ropes. In spiritual world, everything is made from sato guna, pure sattva, and pure sattva means freedom, liberation, bringing one closer to Krishna, or Krishna is always in the consciousness. That is the meaning of Suddha Sattva. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you, Professor. So there's no yoga.
The voice is very unclear. What's going on?
Your voice is fine. I think Amritwani's voice is low.
Okay,
Yeah.
hold on. Yeah. Okay. Is it better now? Go ahead. Can you say something?
Yes, perfect, Didi.
Yeah. Okay.
Can
Okay.
you hear us, Mataji?
Yeah. Now it's good. Yeah.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Yes.
No.
Your computer only listens to Amritwani.
Yeah, is it better now, Prabhuji?
Yes. Now.
I think I was a little in a different direction. So, yes, Prabhuji, I mean, your answer really helped. Thank you so much. So, there is no yogas in Like Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga, all
No,
those
no,
yugas does
there
not
are no
exist.
yugas in the spiritual world. They only related to this material world.
Right.
And, yeah, it's only meant to facilitate different living entities, different level of enjoyment. And so the material world is a very tricky balance between, Krishna is trying to establish a very tricky balance between living entities wanting to enjoy this material world and also living entities coming to the point where they want to get out of this material world. So all these 4 yuga cycles are designed in such a way that living entities get both the chance. So if somebody really wants to really go deep into this material world and really enjoy it, the modes of passion and ignorance more and more, they get a chance to take birth in the Kali Yuga. And when they get frustrated, then they also get the opportunity to get out of here in Kali Yuga and then maybe move on to Satya Yuga. So it's a cycle to create that opportunity for everybody.
Yeah, that makes sense, Prabhu. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Prabhuji. I was just thinking about, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I was just thinking about the research that you said on longevity. The biggest punishment I think that can be for a person is to not ever die. I think. I hope we don't get into that kind of a situation. So.
Yeah, in the material world, that is true, right?
You don't want to be stuck here forever.
Yeah, especially because you know, in the material world, longevity. There's a story like that. Actually, it was an astrologer, and he didn't know like how to like he needed to go and tell the king that. So there's the same way you can say, right? So that you can say that you're going to die very early. So then the king got very offended, and then the other astrologer came and said the same thing. He said, you know, you're not going to see the death of any of your family members. Meaning that you'll die early, right? You know? So it's the same thing that in the material world, you know, one reason why, you know, nobody wants to live forever is because they would have to endure or see.
Left alone.
I think Harikirtan Prabhu made a very good point that day that, you know, before you die, you actually see your world shrink. Before you leave, you see your world leave. And so, you know, and hence the ocean of tears here. Yes, Shringar, go ahead. I don't know if you wanted to say something, but I think I saw you come online. Yeah. You're muted.
It was by mistake.
Oh, that's my mistake. Okay. Yes,
I want to make a point, Didi.
Yes, go ahead.
I actually the answer which Loka Prabhu gave to Vishnu Ratha Prabhu, that is also very like I was not ever like I was not able to vocalize it that why are there 4 yugas, but I think the answer really makes sense. And also the point which you made about like self-righteousness and dharma, like right, like feeling that I am right and this and that. So in that is also a place where you actually create another stream of material life, right? Like yeah, it made a lot of sense to me that how any effort which is separate from Krishna, Guru and seniors can actually be very deviating, and it can create more havoc than actually bring a solution to people. So.
Yeah, that's what it seems like, that our actions in this world, however glorious they may be, but if they're not connected to Krishna, it's just another kind of bondage. And and another point I wanted to make was that our bondage in this material world, it's beginningless ignorance. It's beginningless bondage, right? So we have to know that what we are dealing with is not, you know, it's not that, oh yeah, one fine day we're just playing and we said, okay, I'm just going to, you know, loiter in this material world. It's not like that. Our bondage here is it's since time immemorial. It's very, very deep, right?
And the bondage is so complicated. Like, for example, you got bonded to something by one particular desire or one particular action. Now that bondage will create another bondage. It's not that you have to wait for another thing to come and create a new set of bondage. That bondage that is already there, it's like a banyan tree. So it will produce another bondage. It will give birth to another bondage from that bondage. And that bondage that comes out that will give birth to another bondage. So one bondage itself is sufficient to keep us like
Bound out.
bound up. So what to speak of bondage coming from all separate sources that we have? It's like just
Yeah.
mind blowing.
Yeah, or it's like seeing, like sometimes when you go to India, you see these huge banyan trees
Mm,
and you see their branches and you see their roots and it just spread like miles and miles.
mm.
Like I think there's one in Kolkata and so many places, right? So it's the same thing. Our life is like that. We have no idea how and where our karma is spread out in so many different directions. So they're all creating their effect on us and creating a bondage for us. That's what we're trying to, leave behind and reach Krishna.
And therefore, it's impossible for a living entity to cut those bondage by ourselves. Even if we got millions of lifetimes, millions of years, and Krishna said, "Okay, go ahead, cut them."
Cut them.
There's no way we can cut them ourselves.
But we can cut them when we try to bind Krishna.
Yeah.
So the way we can cut them is when we try to bind Krishna. Krishna is not bound. He is also not bound, but he is bound by the love of his devotees. So the more we try to bind Krishna, then those other chains that shackle us will automatically, they will just
dissolve.
They will just dissolve. That is the secret. Because the more we try to cut through those threads, the more we will find ourselves entangled. So
Yeah, that's why the path of tapasya, the path of austerity, the path of any other path, it doesn't work because that path itself creates another kind of bondage. Like for example, Vishwamitra, he wanted to cut through Ashtanga yoga and go into this tapasya and meditation, but then he got bound up by Menaka. So it doesn't work. You try to free yourself from this side, then you get tied up on the other side.
It's like hatred doesn't work, renunciation doesn't work, austerity doesn't work, knowledge doesn't work.
It may work for some time. You may get the illusion that, okay, you're getting free, but then before you know, something else will catch you.
Yeah. The pride will catch you.
The pride will catch you.
Right? I mean, you perform austerities and then you become like, you see that. It's amazing how Krishna has designed this material world. But an unbound person can come and open up your chains.
Yeah.
And that is a representative of Krishna. Yes, Reggie, go ahead.
Okay, so you said that, you can welcome Yamaraj to your things and you wouldn't die, but is it wrong to say that I wouldn't want to do that because Yamaraj is always welcome? And maybe it's just an odd question.
No, can you explain your question a little bit more?
Like, do you mean inviting Yamaraj means inviting death?
Yeah, the Yamaraj is always welcome because I'm okay with death. When it comes, it comes.
Like that. Yeah, I mean, it's a way of saying, right? It's, Prabhupada's making this point that, people are always very afraid of having Yamaraj, around and it evokes fear. But for a devotee, because he sees Yamaraj not as a great fearsome personality, but as a great devotee of the Lord. And Yamaraj, from his side, he sees the devotees as his worshipable, objects, right? He honors them. In fact, he tells, there's a discussion coming up where he's going to tell his assistants that don't ever go to a person who chants the holy names of Krishna. So, and in fact, this same Yamaraj appears as Vidura, who we already talked about. So our relationship with Yamaraj is not just like, for some people, there might be a cop. We used to have a cop living next door to us. Like you see that cop when he is on a chase, he is a fearsome person. But when he was our neighbor, we used to talk to him and joke with him, and he was our neighbor and he was our friend, right? So depending on where you are at, your relationship with Yamaraj can be very intimate and very sweet.
Yeah.
You have no fear.
Yeah, Yamaraj, I guess, literally means meeting death. But for a devotee steps on the head of the death and goes to the spiritual world. So inviting Yamaraj means getting his assistance, getting the assistance of death personified to actually go to the spiritual world. That's another meaning of inviting Yamaraj to your. And also the death can also mean that in general it means that more prolonged moments in this material world, more prolonged time in this material world, right? So death, and there's so much more time coming up in the future to stay in this material world. Inviting Yamaraj, what he does, he brings back all the future time into a bundle and then he rose it back into like, okay, this is the end of your material life. So it's like putting that time and burning it right then and there for you. So when all the future time in the material world is burned, you go back to the spiritual world. So that's the impact of Yamaraj, or actually being in the association of any devotee.
Yamaraj is a devotee, right?
Yeah, if you're in the association of devotee, there is no future time in this material world for us. That's another meaning of death. There is no time in this material world.
Amrita, go ahead. And then Shringar.
Yeah, I just wanted to reflect on, the fear of death is something that, all of us go through. And I think, the reason we fear death is because, we don't know how to deal with, not being attached to this body, or not being attached to every, relationship that comes with this body. So I think that, just associating and reading, the Srimad Bhagavatam is sort of a way for us to, attach with Krishna, his pastimes, and also it slowly takes away the fear, of losing, this material body and the material relationships. And also it helps us to look forward to what comes next.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. There is something, wonderful, when, you've lived a life of devotion, then one is no longer afraid. It's nice. Thank you. Shringar, go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I really like this point that you brought up in the beginning of the discussion, that what determines anyone's elevated state is their qualities, and not just in public domain, but private domain. So I was thinking it really applies to me. So I can still hold myself together publicly, but when you ask my kids as my husband, then that's when my real qualities come out, or bad qualities come out. And then even beyond that, there are certain things we don't even express in front of them, because we feel that they're actually so ugly that we can't even express those thoughts even in front of those close family members. So that we just keep it within our heart, because they're just so ugly.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. That's a very nice point. And yet, whatever there is, imperfections, ugliness, because Krishna is all beautiful, when he starts to appear in our heart, then all that ugliness becomes such beauty that anyone who sees, they're immediately attracted. So this is there's so much hope. There's so much hope. There's so much hope. We will actually surprise ourselves in the course of our own spiritual journey. There will be moments where you will know distinctly that your response is not your response. That response that we are giving at any particular point is because of our association with Krishna. He is the one, he has influenced us. Just like, right, you hang out with a good friend, you suddenly start seeing yourself like undergoing all this transformation. You hang around with Krishna, who's the most, decorated with the most beautiful qualities, and suddenly you can actually see that any time else you would not have responded like this, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does it happen?
Yeah. It's 10:50 now.
Okay.